Lesson 48, there is nothing to fear. So the idea for today simply states a fact. It is not a fact to those who believe in illusions, but illusions are not facts. So the idea for today, illusions are not facts. So this comes in with the Course in Miracles, and it's also tied into this whole idea of illusions. And if one is, for me, if one is in the ego, what is the ego? In identification with thoughts, feelings, body, any form of limitation. If one is in there, then one is actually in an illusion, because one is usually filtering the world from a place of limitation. Or from the place of A Course in Miracles, one is in some form of fear and separation. You know, there can be shame, guilt, anger, pride. All of these are different forms of fear. And when there is identification with these feelings or thoughts, one is already pulled into a limited worldview, which is perceived through the limiting perceptions of the thoughts, the limiting thoughts being held in mind, and the feelings or limited identification with form. So that more expanded consciousness is not, or getting nearer to the vibrations of truth, free of all identification with form or limitation, or body, or even feelings, which is, and the Course does hammer, if you're new to it, but the Course does hammer later on. It's kind of I would say it says it later on in the Course because it doesn't want to scare everyone off. I think there's value in not scaring everyone off on day one. Whether I'm not a body, I'm free. They didn't put that on day one. I'm not a body, I'm free, for I was God created me. They waited a while. So I think even the angels don't want to scare you off until you get hooked in. just like all those temptations in the world, they get you hooked in. You know, with donuts or whatever, and then you're eating them. So just like the angels have to grab you in a bit slowly. So anyway, so even the identification, the belief that one is the body, as one releases that, one goes to higher states. And while there is, I would say, just to my understanding of the Course, if there is still identification with thoughts or the ego or the body, then one is actually filtering the world. And the world is being filtered through like a lens, or I call them in my book, actually I've just written a book, like dark sunglasses. You're either wearing very, very dark sunglasses or shades, and if you get to full truth, then the glasses are taken off and what is revealed, or the light is revealed. So that's what. So that's when it says illusions are not facts. In truth, there is nothing to fear. Now that's a very, the first time I read that, that's quite an interesting thing, but in truth there is no, well, that's a true statement. If you're in the truth, there is nothing to fear, because the truth is not a thing, and only a thing can have fear.
Sounds so easy.
You see, if you're in limitation, or I'll frame it a different way. If I'm identified in the present moment that my experience is limited, i.e. I am my thinking, or I am my body, or I am trapped in some kind of limited location, or my thoughts are what I am, see, then there can be fear for that identification. But if I'm, it doesn't make sense, but if I'm nothing, if I'm not a thought, if I'm not an identification with anything limited in this present moment, a thought or a body or a feeling, then there isn't anything even to have fear of something else. It can't exist, you see. So that which is, I use many different words for it, but it's not a word, you know. That which is presence, or that which is the timeless now, or that which is is like the infinite, or the unlimited, or the oneness in the present moment, which are just words. But when that is what one is, there can be no fear can even exist. One has to be identified as a thing to be in fear. Like, I'm afraid of my thoughts. Well, then, you know, or my body is afraid of thoughts, or you know. So it doesn't make sense. You see, once you're nothing, you cannot be. No fear can exist, because there has to be a limited identity or a limited sense of beingness. No, not quite right. A limited sense of being or identification for there to be a fear of this and that. So we're pulled into what's called the realms of duality. There's a me in relationship to my thoughts, or me in relationship to my body, or me in relationship to people in this room. So that suddenly starts to exist, the dualistic realms, as I said. So the realms of separation start to exist to the extent that, so it's a true statement, but it doesn't seem true if one is in looking at it from the levels of identification with limited. It doesn't feel like that's true, but in truth, if one is the truth, then by definition there can be nothing to fear. That is an experience. When you're in the truth, you will recognize that to be a true statement. So in truth there is nothing to fear, I totally agree. It is very easy to recognize this. Well, okay. But it is very difficult to recognize, okay, yeah. But it is very difficult to recognize it for those who want, oh, that's interesting, those who want illusions to be true. Okay. So the problem is wanting limitation to be real. Or there's a kind of an interest, I would say a pre-existing interest in thoughts and stories, and that is a kind of a wantingness. I enjoy my thoughts. I want to, you know, oh, this thought flashed across my consciousness. Let me feed off of this thought and really want it and see if it can have another thought. And oh, look, there's feelings in the body. Oh, that's really, really interesting. So I'm really, really interested in this feeling here. Oh, so I guess the Course is saying, I want my thoughts. You know, if I'm not in the truth, then I'm enjoying my thoughts. I'm not enjoying, I'm addicted, or I'm giving meaning to my thought. Oh, there's a feeling in my body. Oh, I'm kind of wanting to be in that feeling. So, okay, I get that. So, yep.
I was going to say, if there is like that wanting, because I kind of can identify with that bit that's like that the ego selects like thoughts I don't want, thoughts I do want, and still has like the wantingness to kind of to like want some of the illusion.
Yes.
And but then it's like, when do you become ready, or is it like wrong to want that? I don't know. It's like, how do you sort of bridge that wanting?
What is it like? Oh, the wantingness of thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I would. The process I do with everything is just to keep inquiring in that moment. So right now, there is something that wants thoughts. Is that correct? You want your thoughts? Do you? Yes.
I do.
Or is there a wanting of thoughts?
When I look for.
Is there no wanting of thoughts, or there's wanting of thoughts?
Nothing wanting.
Okay, so then it's quiet now. Okay, good. So as soon as one looks, it's ridiculous to want thoughts. You see, when one is free of thoughts, or when one is in the thoughts. So just that, I was speaking to someone earlier, just to go inwards as soon as there's wanting. You know, as soon as one's hooked into thoughts, as soon as one's hooked into the body, don't go. Rather than be, the practice is, well, what's observing the thoughts? I mean, there might be a strong thought. I want my thoughts.
The thoughts, I think often the thoughts, they say, what I noticed, for example, that when I described it earlier, is that the thought thinks they are needed because they need to control this. Because there are no thoughts, everything will go crazy. They have to, the thoughts, my thoughts at least, they believe that they are creating, they are keeping the world together. So if they go, then the world will all go crazy. You know, the thoughts have to come in here and tell the world what's going to do. It feels like that's how it feels. If I give up thoughts, oh God, everything will I don't know what will happen. Chaos.
It's too much, huh?
Well, that's not true because you came in here.
Yeah, actually, I noticed this is just happening anyway. The thoughts, they think that they are doing it, but they are not.
That's
they're
right.
afterthoughts.
Yes,
the thoughts are afterthoughts always.
Yeah. So for you anyway, you've had grace. So you can, I have to remind you if you go back to the, because you said there was no thoughts and everything was just observed.
I felt that there was an intelligence that did this, even if there were no thoughts. There was something that was moving this that was not the thought.
That's correct.
And that's what I noticed, that this, and if I could trust that, that is what it is to surrender to God. It's
Yes.
just to surrender to that and stop believing that the thoughts are doing it. Just surrender the thoughts, that is surrender. Surrender the thoughts and just trust that whatever is moving this, and it will do it anyway. It will do it anyway.
Yes.
Yes.
So
I could see that happening. I could see how it was put together. I could get a sense that.
So this thought that the whole world will fall to pieces if you don't.
But then the talk is it true? Is it true? Can it really be possible? That it's like a disbelief that is really possible to just. But like more like animals, they just fly in a group of birds.
Right.
So they have no thoughts. They just know exactly where to go.
Exactly.
And they just know it. Everything knows what to do. But then why do human beings think? There must be some point. Yeah, there must be some point that there are thoughts. What's the purpose of these thoughts? We wouldn't need them either. We could just do our thing also like animals do.
What's observing all of these thoughts?
I don't know what it is. It
just is, yeah. So
it's that what is when there are no thoughts. It's just happening anyway. Yeah, but I think so what.
Yeah, so let happening happen.
It will happen, and even if I don't let it happen, it will still happen. I mean, that's just to say that. Oh no, I'm not going to let it happen.
Yes. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to comment that when I like. Now I lost that, but I was kind of like trying. So when I like want to be in that space of no thought, or even if I kind of like try to drop into it, I get actually more anxious because I don't want to apply any control over it. So as soon as I kind of like try to get into a certain space, it actually really destabilizes me. Like wanting to get into a space of applying control, or so. I think it's almost as if every now and then you wake up and you're like, oh, that was nice. So I think that's why maybe like with practice at some point you're going to be in some point all the time, because I've practiced being in these states, where you've got no thoughts and all of that. Like I used to read Eckhart Tolle all the time, and I felt that I was applying control, or like I was, and then it made me anxious. But then it kind of like, I think with practice and just like starting to pay more attention to it, it kind of like comes on its own accord, and then like it just like kind of feels good. So I think happens like naturally, or maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But yeah.
It's I mean, there's little things like trying to not think. You see, trying to not think, or trying to have no thoughts. You see, and trying to, or trying to control that there's no thoughts right now. You see, and then that will. I mean, I would understand why that would be create even more frustration. So these are like unhooks. You see. So it's like the ego, it's like the thinking is trying to create no thoughts. So the thing with that is, of course, it's not in the beginning, of course, one has to clarify, is one, even if thoughts are here, is there an observing of the thoughts, which is not the thoughts. So even if a thought is here, so for example, let's say there's a mug of tea in front of me. So it's not necessarily to say I don't want mugs of teas to be here, but it's to get clarity. Okay, there's a mug of tea on the table. Am I the mug of tea just because a mug of tea is here? Or am I that which is observing the mug of tea? So this has to be, this is kind of a self-inquiry. Is the me, the truth of what I am I a mug that is being observed? even if I thought I was a mug my whole life, yeah, that was funny, but anyway, even if I thought I was a mug my whole life, it's like getting clarity now. I can see observation of a mug is happening. But am I that which is observing the mug, or is the mug out there? Is the mug not me? Is there detached observing or non-attached witnessing of the mug? And even if the mug is here or not here, I am the witnessing of the mug is more my truth than actually a mug being present in the moment. So once this clarity, so it's not like I'm letting the mugs try and stop the other mugs from happening in the moment, which is not going to really work that well, because one is still in identification with mugs. So like with the thoughts, you see, if the thinking tries to stop the thinking, it tends to be a temporary thing. But if there is observing of the thinking, is there an observer of thoughts which is not thoughts? Is there something which observes, even if there's lots of thoughts, is there something which is observing the thoughts which is not a thought? So thoughts are like if one is in a cinema theatre and the characters are going, there's a clarity that there's observing of the screen. One is not the characters on the screen changing. So if all these thoughts are happening in the mind right now, is there a detached observing of all the thoughts which is not the thoughts? So when that starts to happen, so then it's not a problem if there are thoughts or if there are not thoughts, but it's like just if there are mugs on the table, if there are not mugs on the table, it's there's crystal clarity and awareness that they are being observed, but they are not what I am. So one is out of the realm, even if thoughts are here, it's not a problem, but they're not there's nothing, it's a neutral object. They are neutral things just passing by, and one is observing them. You see, like with Hawkins' research, of course, everything I say, there's a context in where one is at and what one is applying in the context. So just like, and also the level of spiritual, I call it level of spiritual, let's say level of spiritual development of the person as well. However, generally speaking, I would say if one is inexperienced in going to the observer of feelings, like let's say there's fear in my stomach, you see, sometimes for some, asking what's observing the fear is too difficult, you see. So, or if the feeling is very, very heavy, I think even extreme feelings, the observer can actually knock them out in a split second. I actually witnessed that because I was. I'm just trying to break the belief that even difficult feelings can't be observed. I mean, generally speaking, there's difficult feelings, and I'm talking to people. I tell them to sit with the feelings for a little while, just to feel them out, and then go to the observer, so they become a little bit felt out, and there's a bit more lightness, and then it's easier to go to the observer. But with Hawkins, I've shared this before. He was allergic to anaesthetic after he cut his thumb off with a saw. He had to go into an operating theatre and say no anaesthetic. And he just did the thing of allowing the feelings, i.e. no resistance to the feelings of what is. So as they're sort of chopping them up, sort of thing. And he went off into bliss. So that's and you have to be pretty advanced to be able to do that, but it's possible. It just shows what if there's no resistance to anything. Actually, the ego would. One would go off into actually a heavenly realm, into a white light, you see. There has to be an ego that's slightly resisting to be even in this world, but we're getting into a very, very high level of speaking now. So, but the less resistance there is, or the less projected meaning from the levels of ego, the more easy it is, the more one is going into the more expanded states, or the higher levels of consciousness. So one is not identified as a body or one's thinking. It's like one becomes an expanded state of consciousness or oneness in the room. You see, one gets to the higher elevated levels. So anyway, I was just saying, I was so inspired by Hawkins that, and this is written in my book, which is, I might as well plug myself on YouTube. Should I plug myself? Probably not, probably shouldn't. Anyway, it's written in my book where I was just trying to do the Hawkins thing. So after I'd had my kidney transplant, I told them I don't want any painkillers, no morphine, no painkillers. I'll just feel it out. And it was intense, but I was feeling it out, and then saying the Lord's Prayer and feeling it out. And so I realised that, so they'd made a gash there. So it was extremely intense pain. I described it in the book as like someone had just put a huge kitchen knife in my stomach and left it there. So it was like excruciatingly painful. I was just sitting with it without painkillers. And it was going on for hours and hours, and I was hoping it would go away sooner, but it was just carrying on. So I thought I had an MP3 of Muji with me, and I had the thought flashed into mind, like put the Muji on, you see, because the fear-based thought came, you won't get any sleep now because it'll just be intense, hyper-intense pain right through the night. So I just put it on, and obviously I think the great thing with listening to Muji, because he asks what's observing, see, what's observing the pain? Now, he doesn't have to say that to me, but I just change the words. So if he says to someone what's observing the feeling, or what's observing the thought, so I just substitute, he was saying to someone, oh yes, of course, is there an observer of the pain? And literally, in a split second, as I heard that, I went into one of the deepest sleeps. You have to be, if you've just had surgery like that and you have pain at a hyper level, I mean, I would say for most people it's impossible to sleep with that level of intensity of pain. But then suddenly it was like, by going into the observer, I had a really, really deep sleep, and not, no pain. I mean, there was absolutely, the whole world had gone, and it was a very, very deep, very, very restful sleep with after just being cut open. So that is the power of the observer, you see. Even if someone had stabbed you, if you're good enough, just go to the observer. Actually, I think that's a good idea to go to the observer after you've just been stabbed. You might as well go to that realm as quickly as possible. But I have done it myself, just to share my experience. Even though, generally speaking, myself and I think most people, if they're in extremely high feelings, find it difficult to do the observer because it seems like the feeling is so sticky that trying to get that which is observed to that which is a non-attached, pure observing, so that distance comes between the feeling seems to be difficult. So in that context, I recommend others and myself, just allow the feeling and just be with the feeling and don't label. And then it'll loosen up, and then when it's loosened up a bit, then see, is there a witnessing of the feeling? And then detach from it at that point. Or just carry on. Or you can use whatever tools you want to use if you have different tools. Yeah, I generally speak in terms of the observer here because it's a general tool. But yes, for different people in different contexts and different levels of intensity of feeling, it's use whatever tool is best for you, that you can use, that you're able to use. But I don't see any harm, even if you've got a really strong feeling coming up suddenly, in just spending a minute saying, is there an observer of the feeling which is not the feeling? So I don't see it, otherwise if not, then just sitting with the feeling. The other tool I do, if the observer is difficult, is just sit down and just be with the feeling. And then the thoughts come to label the feeling. It's a bad feeling. I don't want this feeling to be here. Then as soon as these thoughts emerge, just release them and just be with the feeling. So it's like, if we could say, and this is not accurate at the highest level, there is interest or intention or interest or identification. If identification goes to the field of thoughts, when a strong feeling, detach from that as quickly as possible, and then just allowing the feeling, you see. And then another thought tries to hook into another thought. like I don't like this feeling, or whatever, you know, but then detach from being in thought and then bring the awareness back to just being with the feeling. So trying to spend as much time and recognize from what I understood from Hawkins and my own experience, and I think the experience of 12-step groups, is that feelings pass. But Hawkins said something even more profound than feelings pass. And this was like life transforming. He says, you only have, each individual only has a finite amount of suppressed feelings in them.
Finite?
Finite. So, yeah. Meaning, well, I might be quoting slightly wrong, but you see, as you go, okay, so when I was an addict, but this has been my experience, you know, it's getting better and better. When I was an addict, I was like, you know, right at the bottom of the scale. So full of fear, guilt, shame, and addiction. Addiction to food, fear, and my body identification was absolutely humongous. I felt fat, ugly. I would call it as feeling rotten or self-hatred, you know, something like that. So that was the inside feeling that I carried around. And I felt very trapped in this fat body, full of self-loathing, self-hatred. I was full of fear of what I was projecting out, that people were judging me all the time. And I was trying to say, so that was it. But, you know, what Hawkins said, in my experience, is correct, you see. Actually, I have, like, at that point, I'd never felt my feelings out. I'd always, like, used food or some other addictive process or avoidance or putting on TV, never to actually experience all my feelings until they pass. So I was like a pressure cooker. And I had, I kind of look at, so I had like 100 units of fear that I'd never felt out, trapped in my consciousness, 100 units of shame, 100 units of guilt, 100 units of tears and sadness. So by just feeling feelings, it's like, if I only have 100 units of fear, and I feel out all the fear, then, you know, I won't feel fear, you see. So it's like, or probably right to say is my levels of consciousness will increase. And if I do get fear, they become much lower and lighter, and then float away much more easily. And I don't get so hooked in, identified, and they pass very, very rapidly. And that has been my case. I remember one of the days, it was like miraculous. I had so many miracles. It was like I had lived in up until the age of 30, I'd lived in a blanket of fear and self-hatred and self-loathing. And I had known nothing different my whole life, you know. And I started doing the spiritual work. And then one day, it was miraculous. It was like something had pulled out a huge feeling of self-hatred and self-loathing. And I actually, for the first time ever, probably at the age of about, I don't know, 35 or something, or 32, I never had experienced what it would like to not walk around constantly with a feeling of like deep self-hatred and loathing. And I thought that was just what I was for the rest of my life. And it had it removed, and it's never come back. I have mild feelings, but that huge cloak was suddenly like gone. So it's like, so you shift up, it's like, it's finite, you know, and you go to the realms of the more limitless. So it's like, just that piece of information from Hawkins is like, I want to experience, you know, if I feel sad, I want to cry. I want to cry and cry and cry. I want to cry all out, as much tears as possible. Or if I feel fear, I want to sit with it and feel it until it's past. Because, and it has been my experience over the years, you know, my feelings of fear, I've never gone back to that constant self-loathing. So it's much more rarefied and much smaller and much more subtler, you see. So this is the thing. Of course, if you identify, you can retake it back on. Like if I try and think fearful thoughts and then suppress my feelings all the time, then I'd probably start to go back into hoarding feelings. So that's the thing I would say with that. So today's practice periods will be very short, very simple and very frequent. Merely repeat the idea as often as possible. You can use it with your eyes open at any time and in any situation. It is strongly recommended, however, that you take a minute or so, whenever possible, to close your eyes and repeat the idea slowly to yourself, several times. It is particularly important that you use the idea immediately should anything disturb your peace of mind. The presence of fear is a sure sign that you're trusting in your own strength. So if there is fear, you're trusting in your own strength. What does that mean? For me, it means there's identification with the limited, or there's wanting, or identification or meaning being given to thoughts. And the identity, or the feeling of I-ness, is starting to exist. And the I think someone's showing, the I now wants to control the world so that it can be the thing that will keep it safe. So one is trusting in I-ness. If you let go of identification with anything that is limited, like thoughts or feelings of the body, then one is the truth, the beingness, the pure observing, the witnessing. So that is, it's not even trusting in God. One is that which is out of limitation, you see. So that pure observing or witnessing is just allowing all of creation to happen. And as someone was sharing earlier, it's recognized that that which is observing and that which is allowing creation doesn't really require thinkingness to try and control it. Probably actually goes worse that way. But anyway. So the awareness that there is nothing to fear shows somewhere in your mind, but not necessarily in a place you recognize as yet. That's very interesting. Somewhere in your mind, but not in a place, because this is quite an early lesson. So it's probably expecting that that has not yet been, and that's the correct word, recognized. The recognition of something which is limitless, which is limitless, I can't say the word, which is not limited. Something that is present, not limited, not an identification with a thought or the body or a fear or any sensation, that something has been recognized which is infinitely and eternally present and will be here observing all things that come and go for all eternity. That has not yet been recognized, but for some it has already been recognized. There is an eternal witnessing, an eternal presence that is allowing the creation and the unfolding of the universe and everything within it, and doesn't require any I-ness or me-ness saying that it needs to control anything or do anything. So what it's saying is to you may not yet have recognized that, which is your, as yet, you have. So let me read that sentence again. The awareness that there is nothing to fear shows that somewhere in your mind, though not necessarily in a place you recognize as yet, you have remembered God. Oh yes, yeah. And let His strength take the place of your weakness. Beautiful. So that makes perfect sense. So if you're early on the lessons, you may not yet have recognized something eternal, something that is limitless, something that will organize life and allows life to happen. You've not yet remembered God. So remembering God for me is just as simple as releasing the identification with the limited me, or the I thought, or the feelings or thoughts. Thoughts can be there. Remembrance of God can happen even if there's a mug on the table. But there's no confusion that the mug is me. You see, the mug is just being witnessed to be on the table in the moment. However, if I identify myself as the mug, then I'm not God, you see. Or I'm not that which is not, I'm a mug at that point, you see, because I've identified myself as mugness. So I could identify myself as thoughtness. I am my thoughts. Or I could identify myself as, but of course, with that identification, one is to what extent, if it's identifying with a very, very limited aspect, then one gets constricted very, very quickly into, like, one can be the infinite beingness or the pure observing or the timeless now. But as soon as there's identification with the feeling of the body or with a thought that merges into a story, then in a split second, one can suddenly be that which is, you could say, in terms of this lesson, trusting in the limited or the I-ness, and no longer trusting in the infinite or the godness or the formless or that which is non-dualistic. So, so you have remembered God, and let His strength take the place of your weakness. I think it's a good idea. The instant you are willing to do this, there is indeed nothing to fear. when you have remembered that place, and it's not accurate, but I have to use words, when you've remembered that which is infinite now, which is witnessing now, which is not a thought, which is allowing, which is timelessly present, then by definition in that state it is impossible to fear, because you have to be something to be afraid of something.
What could there be to fear in a world which I have forgiven and which has forgiven me?
It says in there that everything will lean towards me to bless me, and that reminds me of Hawkins and St. Francis. So, St. Francis, I think was, I mean, I could be wrong, but you know, I was famous because the animals loved him. You know, the birds and everything would come up to him. And it's like when you're radiating, when you let go of your ego, the radiance of love and light into the world, the animals, everything, and even if you send love to flowers, the flowers bless you. They bloom because all of life in the radiance of love will bless you. You know, the flowers will bloom. The Course actually says it in one of the lessons, one of my favourite poetic bits. It's like when you're in the light, the rivers will start to flow and the birds will start to sing, something along those lines. And it's like when that light is radiated out, you know, the birds come to you, the flowers start to bloom, the miracles happen. I've even had like miracles happen. I shared this miracle. I haven't shared this in this group because it's a bit of a. But I love pigeons. I love pigeons. I had a baby pigeon. I brought it up. So ever since that time, like every pigeon I see, I have this huge love for. And I was. This was very mystical. So it was like raining down. I was near sort of Oxford Street, Great Portland Street. I was walking down in the rain, and I saw this. I haven't shared this in this meeting, but I saw this wet-looking pigeon, you know, on a ledge up there, and I looked at it, and it's like my heart. I felt, and I always carry some food. Even now, I carry food with me. If I see like an injured pigeon or a pigeon that hasn't got one leg or anything, I looked at it and I saw, and you start to get a telepathic communication with animals if you really, really love them, even ones you've never met. So I saw the pigeon there, and it looked like bedraggled, and I had the heart, and I knew I had the food. So I looked at it, and it was raining down. I looked at it because sometimes I can communicate with pigeons. So I looked at it just to say, looked at it, if I come down, I've got some food for you. And in that moment, the clouds stopped raining, and a beam of sun came through. You see, it was like in the power of love. In the presence of love, even the sky stopped raining, and the pigeon came down, and I gave it some food, and it got the message. I had food, you see. So it's like even the non-material, even in the presence of love, you see, even the realms of the non-material, not just the humanly and the animal realms, but start to change. So such great power is there. Thank you for that. So it's like if you could trust in that which is not your thinking and let that run the world, the amount of love that comes out is so enormous in its power to be and to manifest good in this world, or love in this world, because love is the absence of that which is limited, or that which is fear-based, or that which is limited in origin. So much power. So the Course in Miracles, even though it sounds poetic, that when that light is here, the birds will start singing, the rivers will start to flow, I think is more powerful than you might imagine. Than it just being some poetry that the Course is trying to spout out. And often I do talk, I should give this warning, I often do talk about the highest realms and not the middle realms. The middle realms are okay as well. But, so do call, because I sometimes speak in different contexts. But, that there is nothing to fear. It's like you'll be a blessing to the world, and the world will bless you. And also in that lesson, it's very similar to Hawkins, you see. You'll see a different world. if you've forgiven everything, and you hold no resentment, no grievance against anybody, anyone, your own body, your own thoughts, if it's all forgiven, actually you've lost all meaning identification with everything that's tied to the tied to the limited. The world that will be seen will be totally different. It's saying something like that. So when you're in the fear and the identification, the world you see is based on the projection coming out of the ego. So one feels like one is limited and everyone else is limited. One is in fear and everyone else probably is holding fearful thoughts against me, or I'm judging myself and I'm judging that everyone else is judging me. But actually when all of that is forgiven, the world that will be seen and how the world will respond to me will be a totally different world. They go hand in hand, which is what Hawkins said, you see, in the highest states of illumination, what is witnessed to be the world is totally different. It's a totally different world to when one is identified with thoughts and feelings. It's a totally different realm. So, so just for those who are new, cancelling your beliefs. This is one of my favourite, my most favourite things that I say. It's actually something that I would say it originated from Hawkins. For me, the origination of it it's very much similar to Lesson 14 from A Course in Miracles. Lesson 14 from A Course in Miracles states, God did not create cancer, so it is not real. You know, that's quite a profound statement. God did not create cancer, so it's not real. And Hawkins' version of that same statement, but worded in a different, using different words, is, I cancel my belief in cancer. I'm an infinite being, subject only to what I hold in mind. So, I cancel my belief in cancer. There's just an idea. So I cancel my belief in the idea of cancer. I'm an infinite being. I'm that which is unlimited, which is the timeless now, which is the eternal beingness, which is the witness observer. You see, so I'm infinite. Infinite being. An infinite being means something which is without limit. I am the presence which is without limit now. You see, so I cancel my belief. A belief in cancer is a limited idea held within mind. So I'm only subject to what I hold in mind means that my reality is based on the thoughts I'm holding in mind. So if I'm having a fearful, separated experience in the present moment, it's because of thoughts I'm holding in mind. For example, if I was to hold the thought cancer in my ego, then that would be that could then turn into being my experience in life. So it's such a profound statement, and like I said, Hawkins lost about 23 illnesses through applying the course, and people with cancer.
Ulcers?
Pardon? Ulcers, yeah, gout, ulcers, gout, ulcers, Avian flu. Avian flu at the time, I guess in the 1960s, was a life-threatening illness, which required. It required about, I think he had the option, the doctor said, it'll cost the treatment, in the 1960s this is, I think, will cost about £10,000 a month for the antibiotics, and you only have a 50-50 chance of it working to cure. And Hawkins, so Avian flu, I remember he said, the doctors said there's only 50-50 chance, it costs £10,000 a month, and he said no, thank you. And he just did the spiritual work on it. So he had 23, some of them life-threatening, yeah, that disappeared as well. Oh, the most profound thing, we're showing a lot of miracles, was that he had a bone in his ears that was pointing a certain direction. So it meant that every time he went in an airplane, he'd get this horrible pain in his ears because the bones were like structured. And he cancelled his belief, in his bones being that way. And they had an X-ray done of him, and many years later he never got the pain after a while. And the bones had actually changed direction, you see, doing the cancelling of beliefs. I thought that was quite amazing. I think cancelling your beliefs, okay, fair enough. If you're reasonably spiritual, yeah, cancer can go. and gout can go, and all these things go. But that you can cancel your belief in having a bone in the wrong direction, causing you pain. And then later they take an X-ray and it's actually moved. I think that's like a mega miracle. So what is being created by the thoughts I'm being held in mind, you see? Even if just changing thoughts can change the bones, shifting around in the structure, then how powerful is this stuff? I myself have had gout, being released from gout, so about 3 illnesses: gout, asthma, and being on a machine 8 hours a day, so it had some miracles as well. So I only share that. He shared his experience, I share my experience, that this is, otherwise it sounds too fantastical. You read in A Course in Miracles, God did not create cancer, so it's not real. Unless you hear people saying that that's the basis of the thoughts that you hold in mind are so powerful in what's created in your body. I would say also powerful to the people that show up in your life, to the life situations, the people that keep showing up in your life, that keeps seeming to teach you negative lessons. All these, bless you. All these things. So, are the thoughts in my mind creating what's happening in my body? Are the thoughts in my mind creating the perception of how friendly or how unfriendly the universe is? Are the thoughts I'm holding in mind creating my work situations or my family dynamics as they're going on? If I'm holding the situation that if I hold the belief that dealing with family is difficult, if I hold that belief, how powerful is that in my interaction with family? If I hold the belief that work has got to be a struggle, how powerful is having that thought in my mind? Or if I believe, so clearing these thoughts out is very, has been quite life. I've seen things, I'm sure I've written it in my book, not only have the physical stuff, but just by forgiving someone, I've written it in my book, I wrote this story. And I thought it was so miraculous, because there was this person, I go to these spiritual groups, this person who really didn't like me. And I had this great thing, of course, she doesn't like me, so I don't like her, you see. So it was mutual, I don't know what to say, mutual dislike of each other. So it was like that. So I was praying for her every day and doing the Course in Miracles. And one day, I just share this, I think it's useful. So one day I felt it had gone. I felt no sort of animosity to this girl. And I felt it was just lifted. I just felt like it was gone. And I went in on the same day. She came up to me, and we hadn't been speaking directly, even though directly to each other, even though we could feel the dislike of each other. And she came up to me on the day I felt it had gone. And she said to me, "It's a spiritual view." She said, "Sabbir, you taught me a big lesson, just to let you know I'm leaving the country." So that's the thing, is when you release these thoughts, when you shift the vibration and you have the forgiveness, you release the thought in mind, even people can leave the country or change the dynamic towards you, you see. So otherwise, holding these thoughts, it's almost like the universe is bringing situations in that reflect the thoughts both externally and internally in the physical body. So I just share that. So it's one of my favourite things, cancelling beliefs. Because I had so many physical illnesses, but it's useful for money situations, financial situations, relationship situations. You just have to fish out, what is the belief? Am I holding a belief in a bad relationship with my mother? Am I holding a bad relationship with money? Am I holding a bad relationship with my body? Am I believing that the world is horrible and full of people about to attack me? And what things am I holding in mind? So very, very quickly, what if, and the Heisenberg principle is that from science, is that if a scientist observes some phenomena, like some atoms, they can change between waves and particles. So that's a scientist. But what if you were a saint? Because scientists have got quite a strong ego. They're quite intellectual. They haven't really done a lot of spiritual work and released all their ego. What if, like Buddha or Christ or a saint was to, without any of the ego thoughts, would look at something? What would be the shift in that? you see. So hence the miracles around the enlightened teachers and the saints and the gurus of past. So what if the whole basis of the ego is that me in my thinking is what needs to control the world to create my reality? But what if the power is in letting go of the thinking and then allowing the miraculous or love or God or the infinite to orchestrate reality rather than the thinking? So to what extent am I, especially limiting thoughts, like I'm bad or I'm useful or useless or I'm so bad self-esteem, people don't like me, or London is horrible, or Finsbury Park is full of bad people. These are not good beliefs to hold in mind, you see. Possibly if I hold the belief that people in Finsbury Park are not nice, probably going to meet a lot of not nice people in Finsbury Park. Whereas if that's all gone, maybe I just continue to meet like lovely people in Finsbury Park. You don't know the power of what you're holding in mind and how it's orchestrated, how the whole universe is orchestrating to meet the thoughts that's being held in mind, or the unforgiveness that's being held. So in my view, this stuff is the most powerful stuff to change your life, because we're working on the level of releasing thoughts and allowing the divine to orchestrate life. There's a lot of stuff out there which is about changing your thoughts to create the reality you want. But for me, this is kind of like going into the realm of allowing divinity to allow that to go. Having spiritual experiences and just suddenly realizing that everything is being witnessed, there's just pure observing and life is happening, is a spiritual experience, which is quite profound. So it's a very, very good thing. I think one of the things when one has spiritual experiences is when the thinking comes back in, it discounts that or pretends that's, it carries on into the identity again, gets hooked back in. So just as I was sort of sharing before with my story, I had kidney failure, and then I had a spiritual experience in the hospital bed, find a spiritual solution. Someone gave me a Hawkins DVD, and I had another spiritual experience. And Hawkins said that the Course in Miracles calibrates at enlightenment at a very high vibration. So, and that he had 23 illnesses, and that when he applied the daily lessons to A Course in Miracles and his other spiritual work, everything left. All 23, some of them were life-threatening. And he had a group in America for the seriously ill, so people with cancer and AIDS, and they applied the spiritual principles, and their illnesses left as well. So it's quite awesome. And I've just very, very quickly, I have applied the Course in Miracles every day for many years now, and all my major illnesses are gone now: kidney failure, gout, asthma. So it's quite amazing. Now the thing with also, at the same time, I was introduced to another teacher called Muji, and he asked me these questions regarding my what I perceived myself to be. I thought I was my thinking, I thought I was my body, but what's observing, what's observing the thoughts, what's observing the feelings and the sensations? And I had a white light spiritual experience, which was the most profound experience. So I love his teachings and Hawkins. But the thing with, as was being shared earlier, with Hawkins' work, of course, is when you're in fear, or when you're in shame, or guilt, or overwhelm, or pride, or all of those, they are actually like, you're actually tuned into a radio station. It's like being tuned into a radio station. And the thoughts you get, like let's say I'm vibrating at fear, or that's my resonant consciousness. If that's my dominant resonant consciousness, then it'll be like, it's like I'm tuned into fearful thoughts, you see. And what's perceived, the perception of the world, will also be skewed through fear. So it'll be, everything is like scary. So that's when one is at those levels. If one releases, if one feels out the fear, or applies the Course in Miracles lessons to these thoughts, we'll be doing that very, very shortly. Then they start to lose their meaning, and the feelings start to evaporate, and one goes up to another, you could say, another vibration. So one could be tuning into peace or happiness, or even like having spiritual experience that everything is just witnessed to be unfolding, and even the thoughts, one is not even the thoughts, you see. They sometimes are here, they sometimes are not here. And even the experiencing that even the feelings in the body are being observed, you see. There's that detachment from the thought. So applying the Course for me is very powerful, and also we'll be talking a little bit later about the self-inquiry, which is for me what the Course in Miracles, even though the Course in Miracles has heavy languaging, when one has the spiritual experience, it's quite easy to understand what the Course is aiming you for, what it's trying to, through forgiveness, through letting go of meaning, through letting go of attachment to form, is allowing you to enter the state of the formless, or the presence, which is not an absorption in thoughts or feelings. So we're getting into those more expanded states of consciousness.